Tonight, you'll flick on a light, feel the heat kick in, and shut a door that seals out the cold, and you won't think about it once. Hold on to that feeling, because to almost everyone who came before you, it would have been pure science fiction. Wind the clock back to the year 1320, an English village. You wake up, and before your eyes even open, you notice the smoke. It's in your hair, it's in your lungs, it's hanging in the air above you like a second roof. There's no chimney, no window you can throw open, no second room to escape to, no door marked bathroom, just you, your entire family, a fire that hasn't gone out in living memory, and about 3 steps to your left, a cow. This is what home looked like for almost all of human history. Not a castle, not a cottage out of a fairy tale. One dark, smoky room shared with your parents, your children, and your livestock. And here's the thing nobody tells you. Almost everything you picture when you imagine medieval life is wrong. The peasants weren't filthy because they were stupid. That smoke wasn't a design flaw, and that one cramped room was doing more to keep you alive than any modern apartment ever has. So what was it actually like inside that one smoky room? Let's go in. The house. Start with the building, because it's cleverer than it looks. The classic peasant home was a cruck house. You'd take 2 big curved oak timbers, naturally bent, stand them up, and join them at the top to form an arch, strong enough to carry the whole roof to the ground. The walls between them were filled with the most metal-sounding material in history, wattle and daub. The wattle is a lattice of woven wooden strips. The daub is what you smear over it. Wet clay, sand, straw, animal hair, and dung, manure. Your walls were partly made of poop, but once it dried, that mixture kept the heat in, didn't catch fire easily, and cost nothing. On top went a thatched roof of straw or reed, pretty to look at, and so prone to rot, it had to be completely replaced every 10 to 20 years. Hold on to the thatch. It matters more than you think in a minute. One room, step inside, and here's the first shock. There's only one room. That single space was your kitchen, your bedroom, your workshop, and your storage unit, all at once with no walls between them, no privacy, no idea that you were supposed to have any. The floor was bare-packed earth, strewn with straw or fresh rushes from the riverbank. That layer soaked up the mud and the spills and the worse, and when it got too foul, you swept it out the door and laid down fresh like a carpet you threw away every few weeks. Furniture? A couple of stools, a chest for bedding, a few pots. That was everything the household owned. The roommates have hooves. Okay, we need to talk about the cow, because yes, there's a cow, and no, it's not a figure of speech. In a lot of these houses called longhouses, roughly 1/3 of your single room was penned off, and that's where the animals lived. Inside, with you, and there's a reason, and it's not the one you'd guess. Your animals were the most valuable things you owned. A cow or an ox was your car, your bank account, and your retirement plan combined. You weren't leaving that outside to freeze or get stolen. And a big warm animal sharing your air as a furnace? On a freezing night in a house with no real insulation, that cow was the closest thing you had to central heating with a pulse. The smoke. Now the smoke, because it's the most important fact in this room. In the middle of the floor sat the hearth, an open fire on bare stone, and here's the part modern people can't grasp. There was no chimney, none. The chimney didn't reach ordinary homes until around the 1100s, and in the countryside, the open central fire held on into the 1500s. So the smoke just rose, pooled under the roof, and leaked out through a hole in the thatch. The air up high was thick and choking. The roof beams turned black with soot, and that soot is how we know these homes today. At Stoneleigh in Warwickshire, archaeologists studied the house of a man named Robert Dean. The giveaway was exactly this. The timbers above the open hall were still coated black with tar and soot from a fire that burned on the floor below. No chimney anywhere. One medieval sermon just calls the hall black with smoke, and the fire never went out. At night you banked it under ash, so a single ember lived till morning, because relighting from scratch, with no matches, was a nightmare. The twist, the smoke, was saving you. A choking, unventilated room sounds like pure misery and bad design. But here's where it gets fascinating, because that smoke was doing jobs you'd never guess. It dried the thatch from the inside, slowing the rot. It smoked and preserved the meat hanging from the rafters. Your house was a working smokehouse you also slept in, and it soaked into everything as a preservative and a bug repellent, helping keep the insects out of the thatch and the timbers. So the single most uncomfortable thing about the house, the smoke that stung your eyes every day, was also waterproofing your roof, preserving your winter food, and keeping the pests down. When wealthier families later upgraded to proper chimneys, they found their thatch rotted faster and their meat spoiled. They'd removed the thing holding the place together. It looks like squalor. It's actually a solution. Bedtime. Sleep is where the modern viewer really winces. There were barely beds. Most people slept on a pallet, a sack laid right on the floor. The historian Roberta Gilchrist lists what peasants stuffed those sacks with: straw, wool, hair, rags, rags and feathers, whatever they had. The poorest slept on bare straw, and the whole family slept together in that one room by the fire, an arm's length from the animals, close enough to hear them shift in the dark. Now look up. Living in the thatch above your face are mice, birds, and insects, and through the night they drop debris, droppings, and the odd, unlucky bug straight down onto the people sleeping below. When it rains, the roof leaks. At dawn, the dew that beaded under the thatch lets go and drips onto your face, cold, one drop at a time. And the bedding itself, in the plain words of historians, was normally riddled with bedbugs and fleas, and you accepted it the way you accept the weather. You weren't sleeping in a bedroom, you were sleeping inside a living, dripping, faintly crawling ceiling. But before you write these people off, the archaeology has one more surprise. It's easy to picture every peasant in the same filthy hut that fell down every generation. Recent archaeology tore that idea apart. Many of these houses were built to last, with solid frames and real carpentry, standing for generations. And here's the wild turn. The Black Death actually improved peasant housing. With a third of Europe dead, workers became scarce. The survivors could demand higher pay, and for the first time, ordinary families had money and spent it rebuilding. Across the English Midlands, archaeologists track a wave of new homes so large they gave it a name, the Great Rebuilding. Bigger houses, better frames, more permanent, paid for by the grim math of a plague. So here's the thing to sit with. Tonight you'll walk into a room, flick a switch, and light just appears. You'll nudge a thermostat instead of feeding a cow. You'll sleep in a space whose only job is sleeping, under a roof that doesn't drip or crawl. But for almost the entire span of human history, that was a luxury nobody could imagine. The version of home you think of as basic, private, and dry, and smokeless, and still is one of the newest things our species has ever built. The peasant in that smoky room wasn't living wrong. They were doing exactly what you're doing right now, taking whatever the world gave them and turning it into shelter and warmth. The walls were just made of mud, and the central heating had a heartbeat. So tonight, when you shut that door behind you, warm and dry and alone in a quiet room, remember, that silence is the luxury. For most people who ever lived, home was never quiet. It was crackling and dripping and breathing all night long.